designed Offbeat Fest last year. It was just myself and Ioana, and we used the 5 E's of experience design to basically design the entire experience of the conference. And we were wondering this year, like, what are we going to do? Because people will come back, and we wanted them to basically have something new to experience. So we brought you on board. So I was just wondering, how did you think about the entire design process?
Yeah, so a lot of what we did together is structured in a way that what we run for our clients, which is like almost like a learning design sprint for experiences that have happened in the past, and it borrows a lot from this idea of like design thinking and problem solving, which is kind of embedded in that whole process. So you try to understand and diagnose what's happening, and then kind of try to figure out how do you solve some of those key problems that might exist in that experience.
But we did start a bit with like reflection first.
Yes.
We looked at that.
Yeah, because it's almost like trying to diagnose where things went well or where they didn't, and like what are some opportunities that exist, and how do you kind of build on top of that, because there was such a rich experience that happened last year. How do you kind of do justice to like what we learned along the way, because otherwise you're just looking at it from scratch for no reason, right? So it's almost like how do you kind of build on top of some of those things that we learned along the way.
And then because you mentioned like design thinking as well, like, okay, we did the reflection. What was next, if you remember?
Yeah, so we started with reflection and almost like acknowledging where we're at, what worked really well, and how do we build on top of that, what probably didn't work as well, and how do we kind of look at improving some of those. And then we got into a bit more like ideation and like blue sky. So we kind of opened up our minds and brought in like inspiration from a lot of different places. So we had that Miro board, if you remember, which had like those images that all of us like collected together. So from those like problems that we identified and opportunities, we had these how might we statements on top of which we started like thinking a lot more. And we'd map those statements to like pre, during and post the conference, and that being like almost like the anchor for thinking about some of these ideas a lot more deeply.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned like the creative process, and I really loved it, but also what myself and Ioana felt was that we had so many ideas, and I was just wondering, do you remember how we ended up with those things that we actually ended up doing out of everything that we came up with?
Yeah, we ended up doing quite a bit more than what we selected. But I think we had a voting process where all of us had one vote. So we kind of tried to pick one idea in each category or in each like how might we statement that we wanted to, like we felt really strongly about, and that almost acted as an anchor. So in some cases, some ideas would take more time than others. So it was good to kind of do that exercise of like being able to prioritize. But in other where that was not necessarily you had to pick one, I think there were more ideas that we ended up picking and executing over the last 2 days as well.
Yeah. And there's something else that I had in mind, that there's such a fine balance between like entertainment and being intentional to the purpose of Offbeat Fest in our case.
Yeah.
Like, how do we reach that balance? How do we get that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like oftentimes some very small things can do a lot, like what we planned for the door, for example, the fact that there should be something that people can physically mark a space, right? Instead of it could have just been like confetti and like, you know, things that are on the wall, but that would have not served the purpose. But we wanted to kind of set that intention from the minute people get inside, right? So I feel like what is the purpose or what is the feeling, and that almost acted as an anchor when we were thinking about the whole 2 days and even what people are feeling before they come into the event, and that then becomes something that you try to design for, instead of it just being something that, oh, okay, what do I do about the space? Right? That's not the question to ask, because then it's like, okay, there's something that has to be done, but maybe the idea comes from a very different kind of feeling as the anchor.
And we had like a couple of themes that we were looking at. Honestly, I remember it was connection, right? One of them. Was it practicality, the other one?
Yes.
Belonging, but belonging is
connection. So connection, practical. What was the other one? Courage.
Courage. Yes, courage.
Yeah, so connection, practicality, courage, and I'm forgetting the fourth one.
And the fourth one. Yeah, so we basically looked at every stage of the process through the lens of these things that we wanted to achieve. And something else that you just mentioned, this idea of designing with feelings in mind first, because I remember that we didn't even look at what exactly we were doing at first. We were just thinking at like very small increments of time what we would like people to feel. And I think this was a bit different than what we did last year, because last year it was more of an overview of what we would have liked people to feel like before, like during it, like the 5 E's. It's like engagement, it's like, no, the first one, I cannot remember the first one. It's entry and engagement and exit, and then what people are left with afterwards, right? So you have 5 stages, and at that point we only looked through those lenses. But then what we realized is that because we looked in like such a broad way, we missed some things, and this year you guided us through very, very small increments of time, and keep in mind that maybe people are tired at the end of day one, so what kind of activities should we do then, and so on and so forth, which I really, really liked as a process.
So I think we started with those 4 kind of larger things that we were trying to design towards, and then when we broke down each day, the idea was to kind of also map, if you remember, how are people feeling naturally
right
at that moment, and do we want to get them to feel that a lot more deeply, or do we want to change that feeling, right? And those were things that we spoke at length about, and I remember almost like we did 2 workshops around just trying to think through that, right? And then thinking of like ideas in that space. So that is helpful, because then you're almost trying to stay close to the reality and where people are at, and trying to meet them there, or trying to elevate them from that level, instead of it being something that is like, oh, at the end of day one, I expect you to have like all your juices and like, you know, be able to, because that's not where people are at, right? And that's kind of counterintuitive, because you will not get the reaction. So it's not about the activity not doing well, but it's just about the time and place, and what you're trying to do with it is something that probably doesn't work. So I feel like a lot of those things, and like back and forth over some of that, because I feel like often as learning designers, we kind of get stuck with, oh, this is such a great activity, right? And can I do more of it, or can I get people to do this or that? But is it actually serving the purpose that we're trying to design for? Is I think the lens that we kept, at least I kept trying to kind of bring into the whole process, and trying to make sure that we're able to like stay on that, because there is a lot that we can do, but we have limited time. So how do we kind of make the most of that, and still leave people with feeling energized and excited and connected, and like feel like they have a bit of that practical courage to take back with, is something that you know, we're able to do.
And now we're here. Like, how do you feel? Like everything came to life basically over the past 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very surreal feeling. I was sharing with somebody yesterday that I don't know if I should stay at the participant level and just like kind of soak it in, or like, you know, try to start analyzing things. And I feel like I didn't do that. I have not gotten into the analysis phase just yet, and I'm just trying to soak it all in. I know we'll go back and unpack it later.